Hello.
How's it going, everybody?
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday night. I don't know if that's such a thing, but this lovely kind of cruddy weather Monday night.
It's one day closer to the weekend.
There we go. That's a good way to look at it.
Trying to stay positive.
I actually have my first Bassmaster event, or NH Bass Nation event this Saturday at Milton Three Ponds. I don't know. It's kind of cool to mention.
That's kind of home water to you, isn't it?
Kind of. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, but it's like 10, 15 minutes away from my house. Like 15 might even be like, if there's like a traffic jam on the way. And I haven't fished it in years. So it should be an advantage, but I'm going in as blind as everyone else. So
nice.
Gotta love it. Anyway, so tonight we have a couple of guests with us coming off of our Lake Winnipesaukee event. We're going to have Todd Dyer with us. Todd came in 4th place. Todd, how's it going?
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good. Wanted to give you a quick chance to introduce yourself to everybody, where you're from, and how long you've been fishing and something like that. And then we'll get Matt on here and talk about Winnie.
Yeah, absolutely. So Todd Dyer. I've been fishing with EKF. I think this is my 3rd year. I started with you guys actually at the Winnie event in 2022 that coincided with the KBET event. That was like my first dive into big tournament fishing. And I had just been doing like small local trails before that. And so it was really cool. I was instantly hooked and knew I was going to fish as many EKF events as possible. So I've been fishing most of my life. I'm from Seacoast, New Hampshire. So most people wouldn't know the town I'm from. So I generally say like Amesbury, Massachusetts. If you know that area right on the New Hampshire border, that's around where I'm from. So Lakes region, not too far away from me.
Nice. So something that has come up since we got I don't even know what to say. What do you call people from New Hampshire?
Yeah. I don't know because I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I guess I'm just a masshole. But
dang, sorry, the mystery continues.
That here, but no, I don't know. I think maybe a Granite Stater.
That's better than what we were saying.
New
Hampshire, what I was saying. New Hampshire, yeah. I think my buddy Tom says New Hampshireans. Like,
yeah. I
Granite Stater.
Granite Stater. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Todd. Looking forward to our conversation. And our second guest is Matt Zapala. Welcome, Matt.
How you doing?
Good. Yeah. So we're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to folks, how long you've been fishing, any cool fishing stories that you have, where you're from. And then we'll get talking about Winnie.
Yeah. So I'm from the Albany, New York area. I've been fishing since I was literally 3 years old. It's been the thing I've been obsessed with my entire life. And I've been floating around in kayaks since I was 17. So I've been doing the kayak thing for a really long time, but it used to be a saltwater thing for me. I got into kayak fishing for the sole purpose of first just kayaking out my shark fishing baits past the sandbar down south. Mm-hmm. And then I started fishing from it. I had an ocean kayak, Prowler 13, which I still have and use in the rivers around here. And so that was it. And then been doing all kinds of different kayak fishing ever since.
All right. Well, you don't happen to know what you call people from New Hampshire, do you?
I'm not the right person for that.
Apparently not either. Okay. It's just been, I don't know, it's inadvertently come up, I think, in our past 3 episodes minimum. And then I think it came up on the broadcast, the Winnie broadcast at some point. I don't know. But luckily our next event is not New Hampshire, and hopefully it doesn't come up or I could just Google it someday. But anyway, would ruin the fun. So the two of you had a really good showing on Winnipesaukee, which was great to see. I'm not sure if any of the folks watching have had a chance to listen to our broadcast, but Matt and Todd were 2 folks that we discussed quite a bit as they were moving their way throughout the top 10 throughout the day. And I think Todd broke a tie for 4th place, if I'm not mistaken, with Nick Audi. So we had a really close competition there. And Matt and Jake were trading places throughout the day, which was really like one of the cool pieces of the broadcast is getting the opportunity to watch that with like such attention and focus. I think the two of you both exceeded the expectations in terms of where I thought some of the fish sizes were going to go, and be the difference makers. I think it was early on, like Jake had an 18 and a half smallie to I think, Matt, your big fish was 18 and a quarter. And I was like, that 1/4 inch could be tough, like depending on how the day is going and all that. So I'm just curious if you want to give us a breakdown as to like how you focus your day. Obviously don't tell us where you were, or, any of the specifics, but like what you keyed in on, the adjustments you made, and, how you got to that initial limit and then how you upgraded a couple times after.
Hold on, guys. Before we get into it, we want to say first and foremost, congratulations to Jake. Jake took first. He called his shots. Earlier in the week, he said that in order to win it, he said he was gonna win it. He would fill out a bag of smallmouth, and then he would have to go look for that kicker. And there was a while on that leaderboard where you guys were talking like, I haven't seen Jake move much at all, and it's because he was making some long runs to go look for that lunker, that kicker bass, which was a 21 and a half. He was able to like that's such a big, bold move to be able to just leave all your fish and then go look for that lunker and then actually catch it.
It's swinging for the fences, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. So congratulations to Jake for taking first again, his home pond. He defended his name on it. And then Matt, you were on his tail. You were right there. Imagine if he didn't catch that kicker, man. It's crazy. It's just that one fish away that separates, first and second.
Oh, it was over. It was over if you didn't catch it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was funny.
There's one guy who knows it was Matt.
Yeah, this is my second place finish on Winnipesaukee now, where I got beat in part or entirely by a largemouth.
Yeah. Oh no.
So it's a trend. But Jake deserves a lot of credit because he went after a specific. He went after one fish, and I think he said he got one bite in like 5 hours, and that was it. And that's what it took. So
yeah, it's a crazy gamble, and that decision to make the run for a big largemouth or not is like, it sounds so simple when it works, right? Like, oh yeah, duh, it's just what you do. But in reality, that could have been a huge waste of time, right? And then staying on the smallmouth could have been the move, right? We know smallmouth move a lot, and sometimes they move into those areas, and the fish that you're on or not on, but sometimes you can find them, but they tend to be, you could have gotten a higher quality smallmouth too. It could go either way. That's the tough decision. Yeah.
The lake, the smallies showed out. Overall, there were 2 bags of smallmouth, mine and another guy who finished in third, right? He had a 90-inch bag of smallies, and then Todd was right there along with a bunch of other people at like 88 or above. That's really good for that lake. That's definitely exceeding expectations, overall. So the lake really showed out, even though it did not, for me at all, set up like that last summer tournament that EKF had there.
How many fish do you think you caught throughout the day, Matt?
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah.
Well, that's good then. At least they were there. The quality. That's the one thing I always get nervous about with these lakes, especially Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire, because I think it's got to be the most tournament fished lake, for big boats. And I don't think it's even close. Like there's got to be a bass boat tournament on there at least each day of the weekend, all summer, all season, if not days during the week as well. So it's good to see. Like it's a pretty resilient fishery despite all that, which is pretty cool to see, and that you're still catching numbers. Because that's the part that we don't always see, right? So not everybody submits every fish, if it's not a cull or whatever. So we don't necessarily get to see it. We watch the total catch numbers, but it's not always like an accurate representation of what's really taking place, right? So.
Not even remotely close.
Yeah. Not even remote. It's kind of like Sacandaga was, right? Like I think a lot of us caught dozens and dozens and dozens of fish to the point.
Which that's what's crazy is we had a lot put up too. There was like I think it was over 500 were put up for that event, and that's only the recorded ones. To your point, Todd. Yeah. So Todd, how was tell us a little bit about your day and how the fish set up, and what was working for you, and any adjustments you had to make like throughout the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, I live fairly close to Winnipesaukee, so I can make day trips there. So I had planned to pre-fish 3 days, 3 different spots, and then kind of based on the wind direction and the weather of the day, pick a spot from there. One of those, actually, I was going to fish one place twice and then once at another spot. And then I knew Lee's Mills was going to be in play for me because I've fished there in the past, even though we couldn't pre-fish there. And, life happens, and I was only able to pre-fish one day. So I went to my most comfortable spot, I would say. I think I was there for 7-8 hours, and I put up 88.5 inches, and I felt pretty good about that. And it was far enough out that I didn't feel as though I was burning any of my spots. And it's a huge anyway, so I don't think you really have to worry about that. And then tournament day rolled around, and I was left flipping a coin of where I was going to go. And I knew the tournament could be won at Lee's if the fish were biting, because I've seen such big fish caught out of that location. But I decided not to go there. I decided to go back to the place I pre-fished. I'm very comfortable with it. I launched there for that last event that you guys had in 2022. Same spot for me, and just kind of moseyed out to my first spot. And at 7:15, 15 minutes before lines in, I find this huge school of perch on scope, and there's just bass crushing them. And so I just followed this school of perch around for the next 15 to 20 minutes until it was lines in. I made my first dummy cast because I'm pretty superstitious outside of that bait ball. And then I threw my drop shot in, and, first cast had an 18.75. It ended up being my biggest fish of the day. And I thought to myself, okay, this is going to go pretty good. I uploaded it. I felt really good about uploading, I think, for the first fish of the tournament. Thanks for giving me a little shout out on that, on the page. That was cool. And by 9 o'clock, I had a limit, just kind of following those perch schools around, and I was sitting at 85 inches, I think, just tossing a drop shot into schools of perch and just hammering them. But the school broke up. I had a hard time finding another school of that size. And so I just kind of had to look for suspended fish on smaller bait balls throughout the day. I think I called 5 times, but I caught more fish than I could possibly count. I was just throwing back 14s and 15s all the time. And once I realized it was a school of smaller fish, I was moving on to find the next pot of fish to see what the size of those fish were. So I was fishing in deeper water, fishing on ledges, looking for perch, or looking for just, suspended fish sitting on those ledges. Surprisingly, in pre-fishing, I was throwing Texas rigs in grass, and I did pretty well. I caught 2 18-inch largemouth and caught some smallmouth hanging in there. And I decided to do that in the morning a little bit for about 5 minutes, and I got absolutely nothing and said, nope, not doing any of that. So I just drop shot it all day long. I brought 3 drop shot rods with me in case any tangled up. I didn't have to stop in the middle of fishing in a school, so I could alternate between them. And I kept 2 different color drop shot baits, one in a smelt color, one in a perch color. Just kind of kept alternating between the 2, and that was it for me.
A smart move, because that's a setup, at least for me, that always has something go wrong with it, whether it's snapping off a weight or whatever. It's rare it makes it through a day.
And most of us operate bow mount trolling motors, and you have a jog feature. If you're going from spot to spot, you can just kind of set it and retie a weight or a hook while you're kind of moseying to that next school of fish. But it's really frustrating when you're sitting on a school and you're following it, you break a weight off, or, you have a fish nick up your line pretty bad and you have to retie, and you're trying to retie and follow that same school to get on those fish at the same time. Yeah. Having multiple rods was helpful.
Especially with the pressure, right? When you know they're there, that adds to it. I'm surprised, though. I think what I'm most surprised from that takeaway is that you trust the jog feature on your motor enough to tie.
only if I'm going 1.5 miles to 2 miles an hour. Anything more than, and if you're going into the wind, anything more than that, and it starts doing that.
Right. That's for sure. So Matt, how does that compare to your day's experience? Not necessarily the pattern, if you want to share that with us, of course, but how does that compare to your day and the type of fish that you were on?
Pretty similar, actually. I also fish an area of the lake that I fished before in the past. In practice, I just I checked out a bunch of stuff and just randomly poking around. I had 90 3/4, but I knew that it wasn't the kind of thing that you could repeat. Like I couldn't do the same thing I did the day before and repeat that. But I went out with 4 drop shot rods ready to roll because I didn't want to deal with the same crap that Todd's talking about. I mean, I catch a lot of smallmouth here locally, but the ones at Winnie just seem to have a particular knack for making a gigantic mess of everything.
I still, to this day, I don't understand how they create some of the knots they do. Like it's mind-boggling because you're taking your, the weight end and you're going around this way, and then you got to bring it back through, and then it's like, it's ridiculous what a 14-inch smallmouth can do to your line.
It's crazy, and when you're doing the tournament thing, you don't have the time to just waste, and so I went out there with 4 drop shot rods and a couple other rods, and I made sure everything was nice and crisp for the start of the tournament. And I was fishing one key area that I had fished in the past that I felt pretty good about it. And on my first cast, I set the hook and my line broke immediately. After I had just retied everything, it was like a really weird kind of a freak thing, and because it felt like saltwater fishing and you get cut off by a bluefish or a Spanish mackerel immediately. Like there was basically no tension. So it was really strange. Okay. The only reason why I'm saying this is because 30 minutes later, after I had caught a whole bunch of fish already, I catch like a 17-inch fish. I get in the net and I'm like, oh my God, he made a mess of everything, and I'm like, I unhook it and, there's still a flatworm in its mouth. I caught the fish that I broke off on the first cast.
Nice.
Like 30 minutes later.
Whoa, nice.
There were a lot of fish in the area, so I thought the odds of doing that was pretty crazy. But the flatworm was still pegged right in the top, got my drop shot weight back too while I was at it.
Perfect.
Win-win.
So was it messed up? Did that one fish mess up 2 lines?
Well, I mean, this was like 30 minutes apart. So, he was just swimming around with this flatworm pegged to the top of his mouth, for a half hour.
Wasn't letting that discourage him.
Caught a bunch of his buddies, and then he still wanted another flatworm, So
that's a good ad for flatworms.
Yeah, flatworms just work, man.
Yeah, it was an interesting way to start the day. Let's put it that way. My fish, unlike Todd's fish, were not blowing actively through schools of bait. They were being kind of weird. Maybe it's because there were a couple boats cycling through the area the day before, one of which sat in that spot for like 5 hours. So I kind of figured maybe it was going to be a little tougher, but ultimately the bite was pretty good. And 95% of the fish I caught were on a drop shot with a flatworm. So
I think it's safe to assume, but just to be sure, forward facing was being heavily used by both of you.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which ones do you guys use?
Matt, you want to go first?
Live scope.
Likewise. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm the only one here that doesn't use live scope, although I am very much interested in it. I guess I'm the only active target one here. So it definitely changes the days for you though when the days are kind of tough. But the guys had a tournament this past week. past weekend with the Massachusetts club and MAKB, and it was just super stingy. And I don't think I would have caught a fish if it wasn't for it. So it's like it's really cool to kind of hunt those fish down. But I think also on places like Winnipesaukee, like just having those days of kind of seeing them. I don't know. I think when you're on smallmouth, especially, did you? I mean, at least for me, I get a little bit of reassurance. Did Matt, did you feel okay about that? Well, they're acting weird. At least you knew they were there and they were still kind of somewhat receptive. I don't know. Was there any signs that you could get them to bite at some point?
Well, I mean, I was catching them, so
that's a good sign. Yeah,
they were. I was catching them. It's just like it's about being efficient, right? And that's what live scope is. Instead of just blind fan casting in that area, I'm sure I could have caught a 85-inch bag doing that. But it's about efficiency and even being able to pick out fish. And that's kind of like the next step of the process. I could have caught a lot more fish, but chose not to do that because I was trying to catch key fish.
That's a great point. Yeah,
and
that's a great perspective.
So, if you make an absolutely perfect pitch to 10 fish in a row and they don't bite, it's annoying. But, if numbers 11, 12, and 13 go, then, there's still hope, right? So I could get a sense that it wasn't going to be as easy as I've seen it in the past, as far as just like getting fish to just, immediately commit.
Yeah, for me, it became very predictable as the day went on. I think, the fish that were in schools actively eating perch, all you had to do was get something near them and they were taking it. I mean, they were fired up. They were ready to go. Likewise, if I found 4 or 5 fish together, I could get one of them to pretty much fire up and eat right away. It was the more singular kind of, and fish that were a little bit harder, or maybe 1 or 2 fish. They'd swim up, look at it, kind of not commit. Sometimes they'd swim right away, and have no desire whatsoever. It was almost like I was spooking them, even though I was just throwing a flatworm.
Would you say that those singles were a better caliber fish?
I think I caught so many fish in like the 16 to 17 inch range that, some of them were kind of just hanging out there. My biggest fish were actively feeding, and there was just no doubt. I lost 1 fish that probably would have helped me a little bit. I don't think it would have made a difference in the standings. He came up, he jumped, and then he went down into like a kind of a more shallow boulder area and just broke me off on a boulder. And that was a pretty decent caliber fish, but for the most part, I fished really clean. I landed most of the fish I hooked. But kind of like Matt was saying, like moving around, trying to target later, especially later in the day, bigger fish, bigger marks on scope was really helpful because I wasn't wasting my time on what I knew to be like, I'd pull up on a spot that very clearly was going to have fish on it. And you'd look and it'd just be like, you knew it was just 12-inch fish.
Right. Just
moving on and not wasting any time. Like, okay, now I can run another 500 feet and find the next area that I know is going to have fish on it and see what the caliber of fish happen to be there.
What an amazing problem.
I know, right?
When you think about fishing in the grand scheme of the days, like to go from days like that to days where you can't find a single fish, and it's like, how was this? I don't know. It's such a cool sport for that reason.
Well, the first time in 2022, like I said, the EKF/KBF combined event on Winnie, I didn't have forward facing. It was still, I don't think a lot of members in the club or people who fish the trail had necessarily had forward facing. I know you guys who did really well at the top did, but I didn't. So I was just pitching in grass all day long and finding drop offs and hoping for the best. And I think I put up, 76 inches that day, finished somewhere down in the, the middle of somewhere in that middle group of folks. But forward facing definitely makes a huge difference in allowing you to be efficient and target the right fish.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, I'm looking up the standings for that event in 2022.
I mean, 975 won it.
Yeah, 89.
Mike Morcone.
Yeah. it's interesting. Like it was still a super tight tournament. Like a lot of the 88s. There's a tie. Jake Angelis and Ryan Metalevich tied with 88 3/4. Yeah, there's a lot of close people in there. It's interesting. I never really thought to compare them, but yeah, it must have been a really good bite that year because I'm in 15th place and we're still at 84 inches. So it's like a really consistent bite. It seemed like the lake was just kind of on fire that year. Yeah.
That event was absurd, the amount of fish that I caught. And I mean, I know others feel exactly the same way. Because the EKF event was day one. There was also the second, trail number 2 for Sunday. Saturday, I know I caught over 75. Sunday, I was scratching at 100. I was expecting the bite to be very similar to that August tournament this time around, and it wasn't quite the same. It was definitely different.
Instead of 75, you were catching 50. It's not
too bad. Yeah, it's still pretty good. It's still pretty good in the grand scheme of things.
No, I know. And look, Winnie's a fantastic fishery for catching fish. Just straight up catching fish. It's outstanding. It doesn't have the same size overall as some other like really well-known fisheries in the Northeast, but as far as just like catching, it's right up there at the top.
Yeah.
There's a really big fish that come out during ice fishing, and there's like I've heard of mythical 10-pounders that come out of Winnie, largemouth.
I wouldn't doubt it. I've seen some fish come out of like the Lees Mills area that are just absolute slobs.
But they're like usually only time I've ever seen like a proof of a fish that like even close to that size, and it's like. Of course, anytime somebody claims to catch a 10-pounder, they bust out the world's oldest digital camera, the same one they filmed the Sasquatch sighting with, so you can barely make anything out. But they claim it was over 10, but the only time I've ever seen it is through ice. It's never through. It's generally not in the summer. But I don't know. I'm not sure where those fish go, but they seem to be a little more particular in the warmer months. But I don't know. They're apparently in there, but it seems like in the summer though the fishing's for smallmouth, for the most part.
Yeah.
Adam, were these the biggest bags of smallmouth you've seen on Winnie in a tournament?
Hobie had some 90s.
Yeah, Hobie had some. Yeah, during our.
Yeah, they didn't. I mean, right? They didn't have. I think there was one 90-inch limit of smallmouth caught during the Hobie. I think. Was there? Just one. There was just so I finished second in that event. Justin Largen won it with largemouth, and he had two 90+ inch days during that tournament. But I was just curious if anybody's seen, like, have you seen a 93 or a 94 inch bag?
Oh, this might be it.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think yours. I think that the top 3 are higher than first place of our 2022 event. So in terms of EKF, I think they definitely, and I wouldn't be, I'm not familiar with the Hobie event as much, but I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but what's funny though, is after the top 3, part of it, I guess, is there's just like a pack in like the 88, 89 range, like even through like 85, the consistency of the last event, I think is where the biggest difference is like everyone was just it was like a gridlock all throughout like the top 20. And this one, you see a lot of people in the 85, but not nearly as much, like not all the way to the top 20. But I think in terms of size, quality of limits, I think this one is the best one I've seen so far. And I think Jake's largemouth is the biggest since maybe our first season. Cause I think the first season, the biggest largemouth was, what was it, John? It was like 21 3/4 because it beat 21 1/4 that it stood for most of the season.
Yeah,
I think it was 21 3/4. So, yeah, I think this year is definitely the best quality year. I would say that was like the really long way of saying yes. I believe these are the biggest bags. The tough part is like the boat guys. They get on them too. Like there's some like some anglers out there who have just they make a living fishing Winnipesaukee now. They've gone from like a lot of success in the tournament circuits, like the big boat circuits around here, and now they do guide services where basically there's like I can't remember the name. There's a name of a family, like the Lucarellis. I think is their name. But they've been around forever, and like they're it's like father, son, like generations of guys who now guide on Winnipesaukee. Just they can put up some fish, that's for sure. But I don't know if it's a boat advantage or what. If they're hopping spot to spot, I'm sure. So, but for I think kayak event, this is the best.
Yeah, I'm actually I pulled up the Hobie stats because I remember there was one really big smallmouth bag, and it was on day one, and it was 92 3/4.
All smallmouth. So
I matched it.
Yeah.
But that's it as far as the smallie bags go. And that was the kind of outlier in that tournament. As far as like, I think the next closest smallie bag was 89.5, which I had and a couple other people had. So yeah, so the lake, I mean, it's putting out great limits still. So,
yeah, when you look at your limit, I mean, that is just a solid limit. You have 3 18 1/4, 18 3/4, and then a 19 1/4. Like that's a limit any day people are thrilled about having. But that even goes like if you look all the way through down, even Todd, like even fourth place, 17.5 is the smallest fish. Like I'll take that day. I'll take that limit most days of the week. That's just. So like it was tight.
Yeah. I thought 90 could do it.
I think most people were in that range. Like I think some people were thinking like 85, which I would have been sad if
85.
No, I didn't think it would be 85. Not with the caliber of anglers that were fishing and just the sheer number of people that are comfortable using scope, the stability of kayaks now being comfortable out in the water. I mean, there's definitely parts of Winnipesaukee that you're not going to want to venture to in a kayak, but I think the access is better due to kayak technology, motor technology. Then you add in forward facing, and I just think like you're not going to see unless a body of water just doesn't have that caliber of fish. I don't think you're going to see a lot of tournaments where it's 85 is winning.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I was like, this is a good question for the podcast, and hopefully it is anyways, because I haven't run this by John yet. But if you had to pick, if you could only pick one of these two, which would you pick? A motor or forward facing?
Forward facing 100%.
What about you, Matt? So you would pick forward facing, even though you may not be able to stay on them? Like you'd be out there paddling?
I'd pedal. I mean, is pedals out too? Are we going to paddle?
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I'm not ready.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on the event.
Yeah.
Let's say Winnie, just for the sake of this.
Like a summertime Winnie event?
Like the most recent event, yeah. Like peak boat traffic.
You can't put the cat back in the bag.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that the fish are just swimming around, floating around, chasing bait, doing all that stuff. And there's no going back on these kind of summertime events. Yeah. There's no going back.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
And I thought I was going to have to be doing a lot of miles this past event, so I used a stern mount motor. So I didn't have spot lock this tournament, but I still, there was no doing well, that well in a tournament without live scope.
Yeah. Period. All right, so that actually is a good segue. My not so well thought out question is a good segue into something that I think people watching would like to know. Let's go through like a general, don't give away any secrets. Let's go over through generally what your setup was kayak wise for this event. Like what kayak you fish out of, in the event of you have a stern motor, bow mounted motor, which one it is, and if you have little quirks in your setup, why you have them, and what they how they suit your style. Well, Matt, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, this year I got an unlimited. I've been fishing out of Old Town Predator, which I absolutely love. It's still my favorite kayak, by the way. But the unlimited is the reason why I got it was I could switch between a bow mount and a stern mount motor. And also when I do the bow mount, pop a rudder on the back with the pull of a pin, so that the ability to kind of flip flop between those is what I did. This tournament, I chose to go with the stern mount motor, and I had one operational graph because I blew a fuse in another one, and that was it. I don't have like a fancy setup for the live scope transducer. I got a piece of PVC in there. Pretty basic, and I went through 3 packs of flatworms. That's about it.
There you go. What which stern mounted motor did you use?
The NK300.
Oh,
okay. What do you get for speeds with the unlimited on that?
For me, like maxing out at like 6. But
That's
probably, I was just fishing the other day, and I was towing around my buddy also, and I was still going 5 1/4. So, it's got a lot of power, and I got it because I wanted to cover and fish new areas on Lake George that I've never even seen. I just didn't have the range, so that's the main reason for that.
You got to get a 36 volt trolling motor to put on the front so you can run both at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are we doing that next year? Going to allow dual motors?
John and I have been talking about big plans. We've been talking about big plans after watching some ICAST stuff. But I don't know how many of them will come to fruition. We'll see. But I don't know. Exciting stuff. I don't know about the 2 motors. That has not come up at all in conversation yet. But it's something now that I think, we can get into ICAST and stuff in a bit. But something that, if kayaks head in that direction, we may have to start considering it. We'll see.
Yeah.
We don't kayaks don't have the weight capacity. They don't have people going 2 motors in a tournament. I just feel like, a small percentage of those people are going to be in a safe boat.
Yeah.
At that point.
Well, the tough part is you still have the folks with the 2x4 strap behind them, right? With the old motor, and it's that scares me enough.
35 pound on the side.
Yeah. That's the stuff, and it's like, listen, I'm not judging anybody for their setups. Like, do whatever you want, but like when it comes to like fishing an EKF event, and we have we have safety to try to ensure, it's like, maybe put a couple more screws in that before you head out. Just to, I don't know, someone do something. But anyway, Todd, what setup were you running for this event, or was it different than normal, or was it just your typical setup? Anything that you do.
Yeah, it's my typical setup. I also run an unlimited. This is my 2nd year with it. I cannot think of a better fishing platform to fish off of, but we'll talk about ICAST, and that Bonafide may change my mind. But yeah, I run an XI3 on the front. I run 2 graphs, a Garmin 93 and then a 106. The 93 runs my side scan, my down scan, my map. Not that I use those a whole bunch, especially on water that I know, other than navigating to waypoints. And then 106 is dedicated for the live scope. I, like Jake, use a Sniper Marine pole for my live scope. And I would say, like, the one big quirk that I have, that if anyone sees me out on the water, you're going to see my net. It's enormous. So I use a Yak Attack leverage landing net. I know a lot of people use those with the big like bucket scoop net on it. But I actually pulled the net off and put it on a 6-foot like aluminum Bass Pro pole. So I have like a 6-foot long net, but it's got that big kind of bucket on it. So it's still pretty lightweight instead of that shorter, like weird angled Yak Attack leverage arm thing that's on it. So I did Frankenstein my net a little bit. It helps me reach out and just get a lot more fish, especially if I'm using a longer rod. I don't have to worry about like pulling the fish in tight. I can kind of scoop them a little easier. So
that's something that not a lot of people talk about. And then what you see on a lot of videos is those guys with the handle net this big, and then they bring the fish to them all the time.
Yeah.
And I want as long as of a net as possible. So I got the longest possible leverage landing net that I could, just because I can get out there. And before that, I was running an Ego net, and the Ego net has like a 4.5 foot stick. I didn't get the collapsible one just because it's so heavy, but I like getting that nut as far out there as possible so I can get the fish into me closer.
Yeah. I mean, I've lost far more fish trying to pull a fish in close versus having a fish like swim in under the net, like in between the net and the boat, trying to net it. I mean, I've lost some fish like that occasionally when you think they're ready and then they're just not and they go on a run. But yeah, absolutely. The longer the net, the better. So yeah.
Todd, were you catching fish on in your net on jumps?
A little bit. I think I caught a handful of fish like on the jump. I just kind of like scooped them out of the air. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't have any jump into my boat. I've had that happen before, but none for this tournament. But yeah,
that's like the Winnie special is just catching them in the air.
Yeah,
I mean, I was doing that all day.
Yeah,
and it's like it's clutch if you do, because sometimes when you're fishing deep, when that fish first comes up, you got your shot at just getting that fish on the jump right next to you. And if you don't, that fish will go potentially straight all the way back down to the bottom and just dog you.
Yep.
And so you net them when they're green and you can just kind of put an end to it.
Yep.
So
well, then you're dealing with them freaking out on the board. So which is a different fiasco. Winnie fish love making the board complicated, and you add like the waves and the boat traffic into it while you're trying to manage your camera, and it was challenging. So
yeah, it definitely adds some pressure to it. So we have a question asking from Justin, our friend Justin Rednow, asking how deep the fish were. That's up to the two of you if you want to give a range. If you want to give specifics, you don't have to. But I'm a little curious about that as well. But I'm glad someone else asked. I don't have to.
Yeah. So I found my fish, most of them between like anywhere from 12 to like 30 feet. And it just depended on like if there were bait nearby or if there was some kind of ledge. I mean, I just found them against drop offs and in changes and in depth, but I found some of them sitting up in that 12-foot range right on an edge of a drop off, if there was a little bit of grass there, if there was some bait there, and then I found others kind of sitting at the bottom of those drop offs and like 30 feet.
Between practice and the tournament, I'd say the majority of the fish between 20 all the way out to like 45. I found deeper fish in practice that I never made it to in the tournament, but there were actually a lot of fish out there just floating around with no bait in sight whatsoever. And that was the big difference between this tournament, this July tournament and the prior August tournament, was that those same areas in August would have had football field size schools of smelt all over them. And in this one, they did not. It's like those fish out there were waiting for the bait that wasn't there, because it was not even remotely close, but those fish were just kind of just floating around. So
the big smelt balls were definitely not out there. It was interesting. I wasn't finding them as regularly as I had in the past.
That's still cool. I mean, I love the idea that, like, I don't know, I just love the versatility that forward facing is offering now, right? That like you have these backup plans. And honestly, you have, in some cases, it sounds like you had like the pick of good and good, or good and better. It's like, that's what a great situation that, like, I don't know, for me in the past, when without forward facing, if you show up to a spot that you're hoping to fish and it doesn't pan out, it's not generally, I mean, I don't remember being able to come up with backup plans, at least not on Winnipesaukee, is that easily. So that's really cool. I don't know, John, we want to shift gears to some reactions, some first impressions of our new Bonafide kayak offering. I say I have nothing
we'll touch into, we've all been absolutely bombarded, or at least I have, via social media, YouTube, Instagram, about ICAST and all the wonky, crazy things that come, like the alligator lure named Alex or something, whatever it was called, crazy stuff. But I saw a lot of really cool stuff, especially in the kayak world. Yak Attack in particular. is coming out with some really, really great stuff. They're doing a lot of cool different things. So I cannot wait for half that stuff to hit. But I guess in the kayak world, the two biggest things, and in my opinion, only one of them we should talk about, but the kayak John boats, the John Yak, the XTR130, and then the Tactical 120 or something.
Is that the Wilderness?
Yeah, it is Wilderness, and Wilderness is owned by Pelican, so that's why it looks like a Catch 110. Cool boat. Let's talk about the boat.
Yeah, cool boat.
Cool boat.
Yeah, cool boat. Let's do that. So yeah. Go ahead, John.
Honestly, all the week of the tournament, we had, or I kept putting on stuff about the XTR130, the Bonafide XTR130, just because I'm extremely intrigued in it. And it's funny because it got so much press. Once again, the kayak world loves to rip things apart for no good reason. It got so much negative press. People like, oh, this is changing the sport. And when the boat itself is a half inch smaller than the new canoe, it's not even 13 feet long. It looks way bigger than it is. But the design that Hans put into it was basically two motors, a front deck, which no kayak has designed a front standing platform into, and then just all of the options for electronics and accessories all went into it. Sounds like I'm a fanboy of it just because it's amazing. I think the design and everything went into it. That's why I have a Take Two, because it's an open platform and I can do as much of that as possible to it. But yeah, I'm stoked. Where is your guys' head about the XTR130?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think I cannot wait to get my hands on it and check it out. My thought is, would the kayak fishing community that is up in arms about this particular kayak, or John Yak, or whatever we're calling it, would they be as up in arms if it had a tapered end like the new canoe did? Because it's kind of like that flat square back that allows the platform to go all the way to the back of the boat and makes usable space. And I wonder if it was just tapered a little more, like if people wouldn't have as negative of opinion, because then it would, quote unquote, look more like a kayak, right, from that top down view. But I think the 730 pound weight rating on it, just the fact that, it's built for serious tournament anglers or people who, want to be able to throw an extra seat on and bring their kids out fishing with them, right? And you can kind of convert it from this monster tournament machine to something that, you can, bring, a kid out on the boat with you, or a spouse or a friend. So, that's a good. I just saw Justin's comment come up there that said the Native never got that much hate, and probably because the Native has a pedal drive. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe.
I think you're right. Yeah, I do think it's that.
But yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to check it out. I told myself I wouldn't find something better than the new canoe, and here we are, like not even 2 years later, and I'm excited for another kayak. So.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest speed. I want to know what it gets for speed. Speed is important to me. I have the Take Two, and it's with a 24-volt bow mount. The thing moves, and I don't want to lose it. So I'm curious, because that's it's a pretty broad hull. So I'm really interested on how the speed is. Matt, what's your take on it?
It's pretty cool. My main questions are, how usable is that front deck? As cool of an idea as it is, how usable is it? And how does it handle on big water? Because that's pretty much all I fish. And I don't know. For some reason, I didn't get the vibe like it would be good in that, but I have no idea. I haven't heard anyone talk about how it actually handles, right? Because it's not out yet. Yeah. So I have no idea. But those would be, how does it how does it handle nasty stuff? And how usable is that deck? I mean, I don't see myself standing on it up there like that. I see that's like, I think 0% chance for.
I think that's one of the things we talked about the week of Winnie when we watched so many videos of this thing, and we're like, one of my concerns, just flat out, as somebody who has some mixed experiences with Bonafide, is like, one, I think finally this is the right move. Some company has built a kayak that is like, okay, forget pedal drives, like motorized kayaks are a thing. Let's make a kayak that's unapologetically like a barge built for, the people that want to rig it out to the max, that want to put a motor or two. Although for me, it's just a motor. And now you can just spend $5,000 on a power pole motor and get 100 pounds of thrust at 36 volts. But I think it's like they finally did it. But I worry. My concern, I shouldn't say worry, but my concern about it is the build quality. Like, this thing has to be built like a tank. Like, I think some of those early on Titans, I always talk about these because they have like the dual layer. They had the foam layer inside, and these kayak hulls were like, they were indestructible. And I think they were one of the last indestructible build kayaks we've seen in a while. And I know during I don't think it's any secret that during like during COVID, there was a lot of demand for kayaks. And then also we saw some quality challenges as well. So I really hope that in addition to this design, they've also made it like indestructible. That's my hope.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish the new canoe hull was a little bit thicker. I mean, if I had one complaint about the new canoe, it's that the hull's a little thin, and I would gladly have a kayak that weighed 10 or 15 more pounds for, a more rigid deck and a little more thick hull, something similar to Old Town. That's a great question, though, Adam, and a concern. I think I would agree. I came from a native prior to that, and man, that thing was a tank. I mean, you could beat it to heck and back,
yeah.
and so I wonder what the Bonafide will be like. But at what is it, 155 pounds loaded? I don't know. It's something.
It's like 170 with the seat, which is
no, it's 150. The seat isn't that much. It's like sub 160 with the seat.
That's still crazy. That's still crazy heavy. Yeah. I mean, you're having to trailer that.
For sure. I think they even said that, but I'm waiting for the first rooftopper. It's going to happen. We're going to see it on social media. It's going to become a meme.
Yeah, you'll see it on the highway.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things that
roof racks aren't meant for that.
No, they're not. And my jokes, I was saying originally, I can't wait to see the first person who puts it in a J cradle, who tries to put it there because it's going to look so ridiculous. But I don't know, as somebody who lives right. I mean, I live 15 minutes from Winnipesaukee, so the heart of the lakes region, the stuff we see come through, for tourists and people from out of state, whatever, with their kayaks, they'll be facing the wrong direction, facing out, barely hanging on, you run the gamut. And so, I'm sure I'll see that one kicking around. But one of the things, Matt, I think you mentioned earlier, you have an old school ocean kayak that's been around forever. I have a Wilderness Systems 115, a Ride 115 from way back, and these and it's still in the family. It's got scratches and gouges, all over the place, but it still floats. And then, but I don't know that type of build quality has been present in the market now for a few years. So I'm hoping that, maybe we'll see some differences, but it would be nice to have kayaks that you could expect to have around as long as you want them to. If you sell them, that's one thing, of course, but these older kayaks that stick around, I just don't know if you're going to see that out of the ones that are being produced now. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong.
Yeah, my old ocean kayak's 18 years old, right? I think 17 or 18 years old, and it is beat up and still perfectly fine, as far as the hull goes. So, not much of a surprise. Made by Old Town, right? So, makes sense. Yeah,
they do good stuff for sure, and they seem to, or at least that I'm aware of, they weren't. Old Town was one of the few companies I think that wasn't really hit with the quality bug, but they all have it. I'm sure. I mean, it's going to happen with those things, but it seems like some got it more than others. But anyway, don't need that doom and gloom. I just hope that if you're gonna have a kayak, it's gonna hold 700 pounds. You should be able to. you go up to a new kayak and you check it out, like, and you see it, like, you should know this thing's going to hold 700 pounds. Like, and I don't know what that looks like because that's such a.
I'm feeling good about it.
Capacity. I am too, to be honest.
If you hear Hans talk about it, it sounds like it's like his pride and joy. He's very proud of this boat that he makes, which is it's a confidence builder and the consumer. I've watched every video probably 10 times, and I've in my head rigged that boat out 10 different ways. Yeah. It's just he sounds confident that this is not going to be an issue boat, and I'm curious when we're gonna start seeing him in the field. I can't wait. And maybe I'll sell the Take 2. I don't know. It's just like about the platform to stand on. It's not necessarily just a platform, right? That you have enough storage. You can put 3,700 planos in there. You could get like I'm running a black pack for my batteries and also for my baits. I could ditch my bait one and put all of my planos in there, and then it's got a drunk. I thought it's a very well thought out boat.
Definitely.
Except for the transducer. I don't know if you've seen where they put the transducer. It's literally just screwed onto the back. It's no. There's no. I didn't see a transducer scupper, or they weren't using transducer arm, which I'm a huge transducer scupper fan. How could they? They just forgot about it. Like they're thinking about everything else, and they're like, "Oh, we got to put a transducer on it." Put it on the transom.
They put it on the back just like a boat, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just like a transom mounted thing, which is bizarre.
Yeah, that's a miss for all things video game fishing. You don't want that transducer back there. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is jig for lake trout. And you need that transducer somewhere in the front half of the boat. Period.
I agree.
So
that sounds like a miss. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I didn't either. So what about this wilderness system? So the wilderness system's actually won best in show over the Bonafide, which makes me wonder who's paying who here. Because to me, it wasn't even like to me the only thing similar. It was like the concept, and then the rest, like the wilderness systems, had me really scratching my head on some design decisions. Did you guys get a chance to see that one?
I did. It looks cool. It's just not as thought out as the Bonafide. Like it's cool how they went.
No front deck though.
It's a Catch 110 meets the Ascend 133, whatever it is. It's just
I thought that too. The Ascend 133X or whatever it's called.
That's exactly what I thought. Was it? Oh, it's an Ascend with like an offset trolling motor, like bay. Like I can't get my head around the fact that the trolling motor sits off to the side, and I feel like that's going to cause, at least. Maybe not in reality, but my perception would be like the boat is leaning in that direction.
They say it prevents the lean. So the reason for it is that, like, how, I think anybody who's ever used a motor guide has experienced the motor guide freak out, almost tossing you over. I think that's a rite of passage for anybody with one. So according to what I saw and what I read, that the motor being offset that far into the boat prevents that from impacting you as much. Like it keeps the boat steady. That being said, they did that at the expense of being able to have a casting deck, and now they have like this weird like hatch in the front that's two lids but one compartment. So I'm like, why not one big lid so I can put like anything that'll fit in here? I don't know, but they do have. I guess maybe it's the transducer. They do have a spot for a transducer, so maybe that's
it's like they had some really good thoughts. Like they have like an in-hull system so you can hook up to your latch on your motor. So it's like you can have this little, it's all run through in-hull and you pull it and you can put your motor down. Just like things like that, but then they just swing and a miss on half the other stuff. It's almost there. It's just, I don't know. It's like a tub.
The name stinks too.
Yeah.
Like tactical ops. Like I'm so like, if I was ever in that thing, it'd be such a lie. I'm so like, I got such terrible balance and stuff still. Like there's nothing tactical about my way of fishing, but I don't know.
And then I guess the only other thing I was thinking about from ICAST is the new trolling motors that are coming out. So we have, the power pole, the PV move.
The move.
So they're coming in at $4,600 with a titanium shaft trolling motor for a kayak, which is ridiculous. 36 inch, but also at a cheaper rate, nobody's really talking about it, is the Lowrance Recon. The Recon is a brushless 24 volt, 36 volt motor as well, but at 24 volts will go at 97, has 97 pounds of thrust. And its controller, the remote control, has a joystick and it has a big LCD screen, which I'm so sick of Motor Guide, man. I those motors are junk. The remote's junk. So I'm looking for something else, but I can't. $4,600 for a trolling motor is a little ridiculous. If you have guns, man, I would do it. I can't imagine the speeds you would get at 100, or if you had the 36 volt. I guess it would like have an NK 300 on the front of your boat, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
How fast would it have to go to justify that price?
You'd have to go on plane, I think.
Yeah, I was gonna say like 8 miles an hour plus.
Yeah, but what, you have a slight chop on the water and you're just eating all those waves.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem. You got too much weight up there. So,
well, that's the thing. They weigh less than a 24 volt Motor Guide. The Power Pole Move weighs 41 pounds, I think. I believe.
That's still a lot of weight and going 8 miles an hour. I mean, I feel like you don't need a lot of water, like chop, to just spear literally everything.
Yeah.
So the Power Pole, the 36-inch shaft Power Pole Move, if you buy from a dealer, is $47.99. If you buy it direct from Power Pole, $48.99. And then I think the Recon, the Lowrance Recon, which honestly is, like to John's point, to 24 volts, it goes 97 pounds of thrust. That one I think is 4,200.
32, yeah. It's still friggin' ridiculous.
It's crazy.
But I mean, Motor Guide hasn't changed a damn thing on their motors in like 15 years or something. I don't know how long, but that's what it feels like. And it's time for something new and better.
Yeah. It does frustrate me enough that I will like hand my credit card to somebody if they time it just right. Like there's been a few times where I would just take it. I'll figure it out.
Did anyone see anything at ICAST that isn't $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000? That's pretty cool.
So I wanted to mention one thing about ICAST that I thought was pretty cool, and I was curious on you guys' thoughts on this. That's the new, I think it's Lowrance is putting together the new forward-facing bundle. That's like
the Eagle
$1,000 for the graph and forward-facing and side scan, and I wonder how many people that like opens the door for forward-facing up to, where they didn't want to invest, $1,000 in a graph plus another $1,500 to $2,000 for live scope. Okay, I can go all in for $1,000 and have it all.
Yeah, so what I found interesting about it is, depending on the video I watched, some people were calling it like Eagle Sight. Like they have like a new name for it. And I can't tell if that's just a rebranding of the first active target. But I mean, it's, if we didn't believe that forward facing was here to stay, I think that this kind of thing seals it, right? Because now for the price of and it comes with a triple shot transducer and C-maps, which, I mean, you can't beat that price. Like, unless you're just like a screen snob and you want like the highest definition screen, I don't know how you pass that up. So I think I think now we're going to see an even wider adoption of it. But I think it's cool. I don't think, it's nice to have the technology that keeps you competitive not be something only like the higher income, or the more well-known or sponsored angler can have. I think it's great when this stuff can become accessible, because quite frankly, like people can, if people are still kind of holdouts on this, that's fine. They don't have to get it. But when people hear these stories about forward facing, when they hear the two of you talk about your day on Winnie, like, I mean, that should get any angler excited to go try this stuff out. And so before that bar was really high, and now it just got a little bit closer, quite a bit closer, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, my take is I think it's friggin' awesome. I wish all of the electronics companies would drop all of their prices. It's friggin', they got the market cornered. They know what they're doing. So it's really cool and bold of Lawrence to do that. I just get them on everybody's boat. Like Adam was just saying, it's such a amazing tool to have. Just learning as you're fishing, seeing the fish active, and then finding structure. I don't know. It's such an amazing advantage if you have it. And for a company to finally drop the price a bit and make a bundle, it's awesome. And then my hat's off to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I don't think Garmin will ever do anything but raise their prices on old models, but they know what they got.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, well, I think we're an hour and 9 minutes into this thing. You think we're ready to wrap it up?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Just a quick plug, a shameless plug for our upcoming event on the St. Lawrence River. If you haven't seen, please check out our Facebook page. If you sign up between now and by August 10th, you can enter to win Dakota Lithium. We're calling it a power bundle, to sound a little buzzwordish, power bundle. So that includes a 10 amp hour power box, a 60 amp hour power box, and a 23 amp hour battery with inverter. So it's a prize pack. I think it's worth about $2,000.
Well over $1,000.
Yeah. So definitely get registered to sign up. And it's, first of all, we're just voted the best fishery in the United States by Bassmaster Magazine, I believe. If it wasn't the top, it was pretty close. So definitely an event that if you can get to, you're going to want to. But thank you both, Matt and Todd, for being on here with us.
I think we forgot something. Matt wanted to talk about something.
Oh, shoot. Right.
Yeah.
No.
This is gonna take that. That'll take too long.
No. You don't
sum it up in a nutshell. I think it's an important PSA for everybody.
Look,
I think so.
We're talking a lot about live scope, right? And the reason why I mention that is I feel like with everyone just looking at screens on their boat, it's like we're losing a little bit of basic, some of our interpersonal skills. When we're talking about like basic angler etiquette. And, when you're out there on the water and you're around other people, I'm just going to say, talk to them, communicate with people around you. Don't put your head down and stare at a graph and pretend like, someone's not talking to you or staring a hole in the side of your head. So, that's my take.
Yeah, angler etiquette, I think, is something that honestly I think it's understated a lot, because I think there's a lot. I mean, at least for me, I make assumptions that most of us know it. I think that's a great point. Live stare, like when you're doing the forward facing, I found myself like looking up and I'm right next to somebody's dock, having just when I was first trying to get part of that was just fighting with like my new mount and all that stuff. But like it's amazing like how focused you can get on the screen and not quite pay attention. But to your point, Matt, like, communication, I think, is key. Ignoring somebody is usually never the answer, I think, at least to start. But, I think it's, there used to be like, what's the saying? 100 feet is the general idea in terms of space between everybody. It's an unwritten rule, I suppose. Probably because of the challenges enforcing it, but we can do that.
That's another reason that everybody should forward-facing sonar, because they'll actually understand the distance. You could say, like, you get used to casting, 60, 100 feet. They'll know how far they should be.
Yeah. How far I need to be from someone.
My general rule is if I can, like, with a flick of a wrist, put my drop shot inside your kayak, you're too close.
Yeah, that's a great rule. I think that's
I think
that's a very fair rule.
Like, look at the wrist is too close. I think
you're too close. I mean, that's unless it's something you talk to somebody about beforehand. Like, for example, at this event, there was another angler that was fishing the same area as me. We talked about it beforehand. We both had history there together in that area in the past. And our understanding was we could fish right next to each other, do whatever. We had kind of an understanding. When you have that kind of communication, things work out, even if it's an unusual situation. But
it eases tension.
When you roll up next to somebody and spot lock next to them and pretend that they don't exist, it's usually not the way to start.
Yeah,
I never thought of it like that. Like if you have somebody roll up on your spot, right? Then they like you guys are fishing the same spot. That's dirty. But now with forward facing sonar, like you got guys rolling up on that school of fish, that bait ball with forward facing sonar as well. That's so. I never even thought about that.
But communication, I think, to Matt's point, right? It's like even if it's just like I don't know, acknowledgement. That we're both there. I don't know. To me, it's like one, I would hate to be uncomfortable all day, potentially, right? At this, like I can deal with awkwardness. I don't know if I could deal with it for the entirety of a tournament day. But just being like, oh, you found this plot too? Like, I don't know, right? Like just saying something to kind of ease the tension and work out something. But it seems like there was, I don't know. But it's one of those things that's tough, and like I've seen it recently in a couple smaller events that like we had on Pawtuckaway a little bit ago, and like people cutting across, and I don't know. I think it's a good point, Matt, that it might be time to just do some refreshers on some of I guess the unwritten rules that I think people that have been around a little while have known and practiced for a while, but maybe some other folks just forget or don't think about. But at the end of the day, it's not worth these tournaments. Like we try to obviously pay out as much as we possibly can, but not one of these tournaments is like life-changing money, and it's really not worth the drama or like having an issue with somebody over a fishing spot, right? Like, so it's like just communicate, be level-headed, be a human being about it. And if it's the event that you have, like in the event you have like a shared spot, like don't just ignore somebody and pretend you don't. Like talk about it and figure it out. And if nothing else, it'll give you time to figure out if you're going to move or come up with a backup plan or whatever. But I
think for me, I mean, Matt, you'd probably find me to be like the opposite. I'm going to be the person that rolls up to you and is like, is it cool if I move within your space here and just talk to you? And say like, hey, how you doing? What are you having for lunch today? Like and talk like non-fishing, because I think, Adam, great point. We're not like, you're not making a life-changing amount of money and like changing your life with this, by winning an event. And so a lot of it is the camaraderie and the social aspect of it, and being able to just go up to someone and say, hey, how you doing? If you haven't seen them in a while, and be like, you don't have to, we don't talk about our fishing, right? You can still just be a person and have a conversation with them about their day. And as it does relate to fishing, say like, so where I fished, I was only with one other person on Winnipesaukee, and we went opposite ways, and we kind of met during the middle of the day. And we just, as we passed each other, we had a conversation of like, which way are you going? Oh, I'm going this way. I'm going that way. Okay. I'm following this bait ball, this school of fish. Is it okay if I continue to cast on them because I'm getting kind of close to you? And having that basic level of kind of, I guess, manners and etiquette, it just goes a long way in making it a fun trail for everyone.
Absolutely.
It definitely does.
I agree.
Look, I like that background. That's a nice upgraded background there, Matt. You got a truck. Checks back
I switched to my wife's desk. I had to plug in the laptop. So
that's all right. Well, anyway, I mean, I think it's a good refresher for all of us, but I think it's a topic that I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that some more again. But yeah, definitely just be nice to each other out there. It's a small community. It doesn't take much to rock the boat. And honestly, it's like once you get the reputation of doing shady things like that or being like out for yourself, like it's tough. That stuff follows you,
Yeah.
So,
but it's also
just make sure our intentions are clear.
It's funny as anglers though, like say you're fishing a spot, right? And then you're all alone, and then in a little bit you see a guy coming your way, and you're in your head, you're like, oh, what's this joker want? He better not be coming out here. And then he's fishing, he getting closer, and then you get more mad. You're like, no, he's coming over here. And you're grinding it out. And then he just goes by you with, hey, how's it going, John? You're like, I didn't need to get that mad. I'm just fishing. It's funny how aggressive we get over people fishing close to us.
It's like how I get on the road. I get that way on the road if somebody like cuts me off or whatever, and then if they wave to like apologize to me, I instantly calm down. It's like the weirdest form of apology.
You regret your anger.
Yeah, and I'm like, you know what? They're all right. They're all right. We're all just trying to get where we're going. I go, it's a whole, it's hilarious. But no, but it's just to be nice to each other. It just makes it a lot easier out there. Plus, you never know what's going to happen if you're in close proximity to somebody. Especially on a lake like Winnipesaukee with boat traffic, and God forbid you need help. You're going to want to have some good graces, I would think, but I don't know. Maybe I'm old school that way. But all right. Well, thank you both very much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it. I think this is our longest podcast, but it's fun. Time flies when you're having a good chat. So, So St. Lawrence is our upcoming event. Be sure to sign up. Dakota Lithium Power Bundle. If you sign up before August 10th, you get a chance to win. And I think we'll do another episode in a couple weeks.
You guys have any shout outs you want to give out real quick?
No, I'm gonna shout out a couple friends that we call the Rip Lip crew.
Do it.
I'll listen to the podcast. So Ray, Steve, Dave, Joe, the guys that I stayed with on Lake George last year. We rented a house together, and just to speak to the camaraderie of fishing, I didn't really know most of these guys prior to that event, and we just kind of all decided to. We found each other and pitched in for this Airbnb together, and like we stay in touch on a daily basis, like the group of us. So
that's what it's about.
That's awesome.
What it's all about. And I just wanted to say thanks to those guys because they
solid
made
group of guys.
Fishing journey a lot more enjoyable.
Excellent.
It's good stuff.
Excellent.
God, my heart.
So it's just teary. These allergies. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right.